They poured $2 million of concrete on land that was never theirs. Then they threatened to sue me for interrupting their little party. One mistake, a single email nobody was supposed to find, is the reason a judge shut down that entire construction site in one afternoon. Day 43. That's how long it took for a $2 million pool to become a pile of rubble. So here's the question I want you to sit with. What costs more, building a pool on someone else's land, or finding out too late that you did? Before this is over, you're going to watch a surveyor plant a bright orange stake directly inside wet, drying concrete. You're going to watch a courtroom go dead silent when an internal email gets read out loud, word for word, in front of the man who wrote it. And you're going to watch grown adults in blazers standing in their own backyard, watching their $2 million dream get jackhammered into gravel, one chunk at a time. Day 1 starts now. I'm not a lawyer. I never wanted to be one. For 11 years, I worked as a title examiner, a boring way of saying I read deeds for a living, tracing ownership back through decades of paperwork until I know exactly where one property ends and another begins. Most people never think about that job existing. I think about it every day because I've seen what happens when nobody checks. I live alone, on 4 acres at the edge of a subdivision, behind a tree line I planted the year I closed on the house. No husband, no kids, just me, a dog, and a property line I could draw from memory. Which is why, on day 43, when I heard chainsaws behind my fence at 7 in the morning, I didn't call the HOA office. I called a surveyor. The HOA president wears a gold watch he mentions in every meeting and a blazer that cost more than most people's mortgage payment. He met me at the fence line with his hands in his pockets and a smile that never reached his eyes. She said, "This is a fully approved community amenity. Our engineers already verified the boundary. You'll want to step back before someone gets hurt." I said, "Whose engineers?" She said, "Does it matter? The county signed off. You're the only one making this difficult." What he wanted wasn't a pool. He wanted a plaque with his name on it before the next election, and no property line was going to get in the way of that. Here's the thing most homeowners don't know, and the thing that gave me my opening. An HOA can approve any amenity it wants on its own land. It cannot approve anything on land it doesn't own. County sign-off means nothing if the boundary itself is wrong. And once you put an owner on formal written notice that construction is crossing their line, continuing isn't a mistake anymore. Courts call that willful encroachment. Before notice, a judge might just award money. After notice, a judge can order the whole structure torn out, no matter the cost, because you can't buy your way into land that was never for sale. That's the ace I was holding. I didn't need to prove they were wrong. I needed to prove on paper that I'd told them, and they kept pouring anyway. The survey wasn't just information, it was the notice that would end them. Quick question before we keep going. If you found out your neighbor's association was building on your land, would you go straight to a lawyer or try to talk it out with the board first? Tell me in the comments, because what I did next split my own family down the middle. Day 39. The surveyor arrived with equipment that looked like it belonged on a satellite launch, not a suburban backyard. He compared my deed, the county plat, and the original 1987 markers still buried under 2 feet of dirt near the tree line. Then he planted the first stake. It landed inside the pool excavation, not near it, inside it. She said, "That's impossible. Our engineer walked this site." I said, "Your engineer didn't dig 4 feet down for a corner monument, mine did." The board went quiet in a group chat I wasn't supposed to see screenshots of, and 2 days later the cement trucks were rescheduled, not canceled, rescheduled to arrive sooner. Day 34. The HOA's attorney sent a letter ordering me to stay off association property, the same 10 meters that belonged to me on paper going back generations. The letter didn't just threaten me, it threatened a lien on my house if I interfered with a duly authorized capital improvement. I read that letter twice at my kitchen table, because for one bad night, I actually wondered if a title examiner's certainty was enough to survive a lawyer's threat. Then I remembered something buried in the board's own meeting minutes from 8 months earlier, something nobody thought a homeowner would ever read. Quick recap. A survey stake landed inside their concrete. Their attorney threatened my house over it. And somewhere in 8-month-old meeting minutes was the sentence that would end all of it. One fact worth knowing. Courts in most states can order demolition even years after a structure is finished if the builder knew about the boundary dispute before pouring the last inch. Those old minutes quoted a message from the president to the treasurer almost word for word. It said the pool, as designed, didn't fit on association land, and buying the extra strip from me would delay the ribbon cutting past the election. His suggested fix: build now, settle the line later. That sentence turned an honest mistake into a documented decision. They hadn't stumbled onto my land, they'd chosen to. I photographed the page and called my attorney. For the first time in 6 weeks, I stopped being the person begging them to stop. Day 12. The final concrete pour was scheduled for 6 the next morning, enough to make the clubhouse foundation permanent before any judge could act. My attorney filed for an emergency restraining order that same afternoon, attaching the survey, the deed, the old minutes, and drone footage of stakes standing inside wet concrete. We had less than 18 hours before the trucks rolled in. Day 1. A court officer walked into an emergency HOA meeting at 6:40 the next morning and handed the president a stop work order in front of the entire board. The cement trucks idled in the driveway and then turned around. Weeks later, after depositions and that one email nobody could explain away, the judge ruled the HOA had knowingly built on private land after formal notice. Permanent injunction, full demolition, every dollar of legal fees, survey costs, and destroyed trees paid by the association. Excavators came back, this time to tear down what they'd built, jackhammer by jackhammer, in front of the same neighbors who'd watched it go up. Before the ending, if you were on that board and you saw those old minutes get read out loud in court, would you have resigned that day or waited to get voted out? I actually want to know. Drop it below. 43 days from the first chainsaw to the first stop work order. 12 days from that stop work order to a permanent injunction. One sentence buried in old minutes that turned a construction project into a demolition order. If there's one thing I'd tell anyone standing where I stood, you don't need to out-lawyer an HOA board, you need to out-document them. Keep the paper, keep the dates. The people who lie in meetings never think anyone's going to read them. So, what costs more, building on land that isn't yours, or finding out too late that you did? They found out on day 1 in front of a court officer, with the trucks still running. If this kind of ending is why you're here, subscribe. There's a new one every week, and the next board hasn't even seen it coming yet.